Oh, good. Oh, this voice sounds familiar.
How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Good, good. Ready
This
to
is
do this. I'm excited to talk to you.
I'm excited to talk to you. I'm geeking out a little bit over
Oh,
here.
yeah?
I actually am. I've seen you for years on television,
Yeah.
as many of us have. I cannot wait to get your story. I cannot wait to hear some more of your crazy stories that we just don't even know behind the scenes,
Yeah.
all that good stuff. But I'm digging your hair today too. I've never seen it like that.
Thanks. Yeah, I decided to get bangs. A big moment in a woman's life, you know.
Yeah, I'm digging it. It looks
Yeah.
good.
Thanks.
It looks
Yeah.
really
Needed a
good.
change.
Well, so first and foremost, how you doing today?
I'm good. I am good. I'm trying to think. I'm just waiting for I live outside of Philadelphia and it is the end of April and Mother Nature has been messing with us because we'll get like a really sunny, beautiful day
Hmm.
and then it will be gray for like a week and
Did you have snow last week in April?
no,
You didn't?
no. Where are you based out of?
Well,
Oh, North Carolina,
I'm in
right?
North Carolina, but yeah, my whole family's upstate New York, and they got like 8 to 10 inches. They lost power for a few days.
Oh
It was
my
just like
God.
it was crazy. It's like this is exactly why I don't live there anymore.
I
Exactly.
I love North Carolina. I actually almost transferred there as a college student
To
to
UNC?
yeah, UNC Wilmington.
Oh, Wilmington. Yeah, that's a
Uh-huh.
great area, great place, great school, all that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, they told me not to though. So that was the
Who's
reason
they?
the administrative team at UNC. So I went, it was really weird. I went there on we decided to like check it out during spring break because it was also like, it's a beach town and like a little
Mhm.
college town. And so we're like, we'll go there. And we had set up a meeting with the administrative person, I don't know. And they were like, well, what are you looking to do? And my majors, I have two, are in music and then theater. And at the time, there were all those like WB shows filming down in Wilmington.
Yep.
So, I thought, especially for the theater side, it'd be great. And the administrative person looked at me and she's like, where are you going now? And I said, Penn State. And then she took a moment and she was like, why would you come here? So
All right then.
I was like, okay, I guess I won't. I guess I'll just stay at Penn State.
What
But
a
funny enough, if I
what a
had
recruiter. What in the
yeah,
world?
I thought that was odd too.
Yeah, wow. That's how
Yeah.
you know they're telling the truth,
Yeah.
when they're a recruiter and they tell you don't come here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm starting to get a slight tan here a little bit being outside in the sun.
Nice.
It's getting warm. It's already feeling like summer, though it's only April. Definitely digging it.
Yeah.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You are outside the Philly area, and that's exactly where you grew up too, right?
Yeah, about. I'm not in the town I grew up in, but in like a similar area, you know.
Okay. Okay. Yep. Definitely familiar with the Northeast. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So we have to dig into a lot of this
Okay,
here.
let's
I
do
am
it.
I am super excited. So Katrina, we all know you from the Travel Channel, now Portals to Hell, TV show that you co-host with Jack Osborne. But you started at Penn State with PRS, right? But I want to
Hmm.
go to even before that. And how in the world did you get into the paranormal and being a paranormal investigator? I want to hear your story on this.
Yeah, so it started when I was really young. We lived in a house that had activity. And so my first memory of anything strange, I didn't see anything. It was my sister's experience, but it involved me. So she saw essentially what happened was she saw a copy of me upstairs in my room. But when she walked down the stairs, I was sitting at the bottom of the steps.
Wow.
So it was a thing of she looked through the banister, saw me sitting on my bed, continued to walk down the stairs, and then I was sitting there at the bottom of the stairs. And I remember I was playing with a Winnie the Pooh puzzle, and we did this whole thing of like, she was like, "How did you do that?" And I was like, "Do what?" She's like, "Get by me without me knowing." And I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." And so there was always this sense in that house that something wasn't right. I don't know how to explain. I was very young, but I just knew what I felt. And so even though I had my own bedroom, I never slept in there alone. I mean, it was like a once in a while, like a handful type of thing. I would cry if they left me upstairs alone, cry if they left me in my bedroom alone. My sister had experiences. She also used to see a man walk down the hallway. My aunt bought the house, or she moved into the house after we left, and she had a lot of experiences. The family after her had experiences and actually contacted my mom to ask her about it. And they found my mom through our old neighbor. So it definitely had a history of it. The current owner has not had experiences, but she runs some kind of business, and every now and again she'll let a client stay over in an extra bedroom. And he had the same experience my sister had with the
Wow.
man.
Wow.
And so that was, I believe his experience was probably, I want to say like early 2000s. And my sister, I mean, I don't know, my sister was young when she had those experiences. So they were probably like about 15 years apart, 10, 15 years apart.
Okay.
And obviously this guy didn't know about us. I don't really think this woman, when I talked to her, she didn't give a whole lot of acknowledgement to the paranormal. So I think if she even heard the stories from maybe our old neighbor, I don't really think she gave a lot of weight to them.
Okay.
So I would doubt that she would be like telling her, her client, her business client, like, oh, by the way, the next house we moved into also had experiences. And it's funny, I think on my Wikipedia page, which is like 4 sentences, but like on my Wikipedia page, it says something like, it was like a lot of turmoil, or the way it reads, it's like something really bad happened to us, but that's not the case. It was never anything bad. It was just experiences, like footsteps that you couldn't explain. My mom was touched on her shoulder one time at the house, and there was nobody there. Shadow figures, those came much later. In my mom still owns the house, and that came much, much later. We had for a while for years, it stopped recently, but what we called the refrigerator ghost, where I kind of named it that. I don't know if anybody else actually calls it that, but you would hear somebody come in the back door, and my mom keeps wind chimes on her door, so you always heard it. And you hear somebody walk into the kitchen, open the refrigerator, close the refrigerator, then walk into the dining room and stop. And at that point, you'd be like, who is here? Because from every room of the house, you can see the dining room, and so you'd like peek out into the dining room, no one's there. You peek out into the kitchen, no one's there. You look into the driveway, no car is there, doors are locked. And pretty much, as far as I know, all of us have experienced this, including other visitors to the house. And when my mom got a new fridge, it stopped.
Wow.
So, a haunted fridge, apparently. So all of this to say that it just really instilled in me this thought of, what is this? And my dad is very scientific, very grounded. He went to school for science, comes from a very religious background, although he is not that way. And my mom, I think, more spiritual and definitely a believer, had her own experiences. Her family had their own experiences. So we got this weird balance of like, it's not real, but then it is real.
Mm-hmm.
And like, my parents never told us either way, like that's all bullshit, or yes, it's completely real. Like they just sort of took a middle ground with us, and just, my dad was pretty silent, but my mom would share her stories, and that's kind of where it landed with us. And I don't think I felt satisfied with that, because I knew I had experiences. And so I was like the weird kid who, you come over for my birthday party, I break out the Ouija board, and like I tell you ghost stories in my really creepy looking house. And I bought all the ghost books at the book fair, and read all that stuff. Me and my sister would watch all those programs on TV, like Unsolved Mysteries. And yeah, I know, it's like the gateway drug of paranormal, Unsolved Mysteries.
That used to freak me out as a kid. I used to watch it occasionally, like I can't watch it. I would never sleep for like a day or two.
You know what? I just, like, during the pandemic, I re-watched old episodes, and just that music still sends shivers up my spine. It's so creepy. And so it became this thing of, I was like into it, doing it, but I didn't really know what I was doing, like as a teenager or anything. And so when I went to school, my aunt, who has had a lot of experiences and is very into this stuff, she was like, well, you know what, maybe Penn State has a club you can join, because this was the time when it was like just booming. And so it wouldn't be so far-fetched to find something like that.
Mhm.
And sure enough, Penn State had a club, and I signed up for that club, and I went to one meeting and then dropped out because there was like all this stuff going on at school, and I was like, you know what, I just need to focus on academics. I'll come back. And so I came back later and I joined. They had like a investigator training class that you could take. So I signed up for that. And then as part of the club, and at the same time they were moving forward with getting Paranormal State off the ground. So they had like air quotes auditions, and they're not like a scripted audition where like, here's the script, read for us. It was just, I was put in front of a camera with the other cast members sitting there asking me questions, and then a couple producers like asking me questions. And it was just sort of a thing of, how are you on camera?
Mm.
Are you like a good speaker? Can you communicate your thoughts? Are you a liability to us? Like, and then they just kept calling me back, and I ended up on the show. And then it just snowballed from there.
Wow. Okay. So let's pick up there in a moment, but I want to go
Yeah.
back. So it seems like your family has had a lot of experiences, and I can only kind of compare it to my family that I don't think has had any. So it's like, do you feel that your family has moved into locations that just happen to be haunted, or do you feel your family perhaps has some kind of maybe attachment, or I don't know of another word to use for
Yeah.
that, but you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I just think they were houses that had something happen, because if we look at the first house, it wasn't just our family. It was, my aunt who lived in there after us, the family after us, and I believe there was another family. For a while it was a rental. So I believe there was like another family in there, and then the current owner who uh her client experienced that. So I think that suggests that it's the house.
Okay.
Um and our neighbor also, I found out later, our neighbor also had experiences, and their property aligned with ours. Like our
Okay.
backyards met up. And the current house, though, the one that we moved into afterwards, I don't. I again, I just sort of think it's an old house. It's, where we grew up, there was a lot of Lenape as well. So I think there's just probably a lot of history to to the area, and a lot of different families came through there.
Okay. And I imagine when you moved as a kid, you're probably like, yes, I can catch a break. I can sleep in my own room now. And then go figure you move to another haunted place. But you just like, God damn, are you serious?
Yeah, I know. I always joke with my parents that they're like terrible at picking houses.
Exactly. Yeah, I would never. Do you have to disclose that now when you buy a house? I heard like a rumor that you have to disclose if it's haunted. I don't know if
Yeah,
that's true
I
or
think
not.
there's like one or two states that make you do it. But yeah, it's a funny thing. I mean, I would want to know.
I would. Hell yeah, I would.
Yeah.
If I start seeing things flying off my shelves, I'd be like, I am out. I am out of here. Do you feel that you being a kid and doing what you do you feel like kids are a little bit more sensitive and open-minded to the paranormal?
Yeah, I think it seems to be that way. That's the pattern we see. And, when we're thinking about children, they're just absorbing everything around them. They don't know to filter things out yet.
Hmm.
And when it comes to any kind of experience or being sensitive to experiences, I think two things happen. I liken it to when you move into a city or a new house and you notice all these like street noises, and oh, the refrigerator's humming, and maybe you hear a dog next door barking. Eventually you habituate it,
Mm,
because you have to, right? Because you have to exist in that space.
mm,
And anything that's distracting or unnerving or uncomfortable, you just learn over time to kind of mute it. And
okay.
so I think that's one of the things that happens. The other thing that happens, I think, is that, we're constantly taught these things aren't real. So if a kid is having experience, I think our instinct is to want to protect them. And one of the ways to do that is, hey, it's not there. You're fine. Don't worry about it. It doesn't exist. It's your imagination. And I think that also kind of leads into, if children do have um, any kind of extra sense that they lose along the way, I would assume that would be a contributing factor.
Okay. That all makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So would you say that kind of maybe all around us, there's paranormal things just happening. We just kind of have toned it out to being like this just normal part of life. We don't even see it anymore.
Yeah, I think there could be an argument for that for sure. I mean, with that question, then we have to define what is the paranormal and what does that mean, and and that's a loaded question in and of itself. But yeah, I do think if there really is any kind of supernatural thing that exists, then I think there's an argument to be made that we become really good at distracting ourselves from it over
Hmm.
time and not paying
Hmm.
attention and not knowing. But there's also a thing I think where, um, like, for example, my husband wears glasses. I don't. And he's been that way since he was a kid. So his eyesight isn't, just naturally, that sense wasn't turned up all the way it needed to be, where mine was. And I
Hmm.
think we can kind of look at a sixth sense in the same way, where some people are just dialed up a little bit more than the average person. Um, and whether we're talking about that with supernatural stuff or just instinct alone, I think everyone can relate to instinct, just like a feeling of when you meet somebody or you're in a place, or maybe you don't feel safe and you don't know why. Kind of the same feeling. Like, some people are just tuned in a lot better, and other people it takes practice.
Yeah, for sure. I want to get into that momentarily, but I would love to kind of go back to your timeline here when you start talking
Mm,
about Paranormal State. And so,
yeah.
whose idea was it to kind of get a TV show? Was Penn State one of like the only colleges that had a club like this? And so maybe it was a little easier for Penn State to pitch it.
Yeah, I don't think at the time, no. I think there were other schools that did. I know we worked with another one I think they were based in New York. And so there were definitely other clubs. And at the time, Ghost Hunters had come out.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of what my aunt was saying. Like, this is popular. I bet you could find a club to join,
Hmm.
you know? And as far as the TV show goes, I've heard both sides of the story. So I've heard that the group was actively looking to get into television, but then I also heard that producers were seeking them out, which I'm sure it's probably a combination of both.
Yeah.
So what I actually had just found this out too, that it was more of a the one production company. There were two production companies on that show, and the one had found the group, and I don't know how they made a connection, whether it was like the group reaching out or she reached out to them or whatever it was. But she had found them, and then she was just like, I want to do a sizzle reel. They did a sizzle reel. Network loved it, so they ordered a pilot. Network loved the pilot, and then it went into production.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, so at what point did you think like I'm not running away from this. I'm going to go towards this. Like, how did you have the courage to stick with this and just kind of dive deeper into that? Where most people, probably including myself, would run away and be like, I ain't dealing with this stuff. Because we've seen some of the episodes. I've seen all of them. Some of them are pretty freaking intense. Granted, maybe TV dramatizes it. I'll let you touch on that.
Yeah.
But some of them seem really intense. How did you have the courage to run towards this?
I don't know that I ever thought about it in that way. I think for me it was two things. When I started out, we worked predominantly with clients. And so for me, it was about putting the focus on them, not
Mm,
myself. Like,
mm,
right, we were there to help them, we were there to advocate for them. Whether it ended up being supernatural or not, they believed it was supernatural. So, we needed to kind of guide them through that process. And the other part of it is I'm extremely, extremely stubborn. So I don't like to I don't like to start something and stop something, which has been it's that also works as a detriment though in life because sometimes you end up sticking around people, places, things,
mm.
whatever that you shouldn't. But I think it's definitely just a stubbornness on my side of like, I'm not gonna let this best me. And a thought that I always have is like, in 100 years, we'll probably have maybe a lot of these different phenomena figured out. And I just think the majority of them probably won't be what we think they are.
Mm.
So I kind of put myself in like futuristic role of like, oh, how silly are those people? You know, they thought that was an evil spirit when actually we know now that it's this. Um, so I think it's just a thing of, you know, my fears come from what I think it could be.
Mm.
And it's always checking myself of, is that my fear? Is that my perception? Or is that the reality of the situation? And the majority of the time I find it's just my perception that I'm scared of.
Was there ever a moment when you first started Paranormal State where it wasn't just your perception? You're like, okay, this is legit and this is kind of crazy.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I think even if it is legit, meaning we can't find a natural explanation for something, meaning that even like going through that, okay, it's not environmental, it's not neurological, it's not psychological, it's not this, it's not that. We really have no explanation for what's happening. Even in those moments, it's still my perception
Mm.
of what it could be, you know? So even in the scariest of cases where like your instinct really takes over and everything in your body is telling you not to be there, not to go forward, not to continue investigating, it's still a thing I do of like checking myself of like, what's the worst that's going to happen to me, you know? Because I mean, like, yes, there have been like physical altercations with experiences. I've had one, but you know, we assume it's aggressive and maybe it is aggressive, but maybe it's not. Like I always go back to, we since we can't quantify the true experiences in any real way just yet, you know, what are we afraid of at that point? It's perception.
Afraid of the unknown. You
Yeah.
are mentally strong. I don't say that lightly. I mean, I'm watching these shows. It's funny because I live with my fiance Kristen. We watch all of your shows
Oh.
and other paranormal shows. Is like, how much would you charge to sit there and do that? Could you do that tonight? Could you do that for an hour? And the answer is no. It's always no. I mean, even just if nothing happened, sitting there in the dark in an abandoned
Yeah.
place is beyond freaky, let alone start hearing
Yes.
taps, noises,
Oh
voices, all
yeah.
that stuff.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I just can't imagine. You said physical altercations. Was that during Paranormal State? Was that a different
Is when I was working on lockdown, I got
okay.
scratched on my lower abdomen, and it was two scratches, and it wasn't. I actually, you'll see. I don't know if you can see. I do get chronic hives that started in 2020, which is super fun. But it wasn't like hives, like welts. It was like literally like a cat had scratched me. You know, when you get scratched by that and like they're bleeding a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
it was like that. And what's interesting is that the area where I was, multiple people have had that same experience. So, I mean, before we came, we heard about people having that experience in that same area. And, you know, I never, to my knowledge, I had never been scratched before. There was one time when I was working in Gettysburg off camera where I came out of an investigation with scratches on my neck and people pointed it out to me. But I never felt that in the moment. You
Mm.
know, they were very odd scratches because they were like crisscrossed and I don't know how that would have happened. But this I felt happening to me as they were happening.
How
And
often? Go
mhm.
ahead. No, keep going.
Oh,
Keep going.
just that, you know, that's just a very weird occurrence. I don't know what causes that. Like, I don't know anything that causes just scratches to, like, as you feel them happening, show up.
So when you go to a location knowing that there are physical scratches and other things, like, is it like, yes, like do it to me. I want to see this, prove it.
No, no, I think it, I guess, you know, I kind of put my beliefs in a couple boxes when I work. So there's the belief system I grew up with, right? And I always put that in a little box. And that, you know, we were raised Christian with some sort of foundation. We weren't like super religious family by any means. Like we only went to church like maybe on Easter. Um, but you know, if I'm looking at my upbringing and the Catholic Church says that's something negative, that's something demonic, that's something evil. So I got to put that in a box, right? Because that's a perception thing. Um, then I have my personal beliefs that I've adopted just as a grown up, you know, and then I have the objective beliefs I've gained from doing this work. So they all kind of like live in these boxes when I'm working. And so when somebody says, there's, oh, this person has gotten scratched, or like 5 people have gotten scratched here, I go into that objective space of like, okay, well, I know there's religions, I know there's cultures, I know what they would say about this stuff. Does it scare me? There's part of it that scares me because, again, I have that upbringing,
Mm.
but I know where that comes from. I know where that fear comes from for me. And so it's more about like, I think it's more that we're investigating the stories at this point, because I think one of the misconceptions about a lot of these shows, and I don't want to speak for every show, I can only speak for the ones that I've been on, but I'm not out to prove or disprove. I think when I started, that was probably my mission, but it was when I started, I kind of came into the field the way a lot of people come into the field of a ghost is someone who died and this is what it means. They have unfinished business and blah, blah, blah. And when you get into the field, you just realize how much is going on in these stories, meaning people's perceptions, people's attitudes, people's upbringings, how much of it can be explained away, how many times you can find a natural explanation. And so it really kind of shifts your perspective. So my goal when I go in, if there's a person that we can help, that's always goal number 1. And then goal number 2 is to investigate the stories, investigate the claims. Can we document them? Can we figure them out? It kind of goes into that place. So it lives in a very objective place for me. So it's just really kind of separating your personal beliefs from, reaching that objectiveness.
Yeah, it seems like you have your mind on straight. And like, I don't say that lightly, because doing what you do, I feel like you have to keep moving forward, to keep showing up at some of these places. But honestly, I feel like that's just a great mindset to have in life in general. You're very, very strong minded.
Thank
You're
you.
open minded as well. Clearly stubborn, which I am as well. So I can relate.
Yeah.
But yeah, that doesn't surprise me. For you to keep showing up to place after place after place, for you to have that kind of mindset, I think that's wonderful. That's just a great way to live life in general. So
It is. I have to apply it to life, though. I'm not
yes.
great at applying it to life, but I'm great at doing it in my job.
Well, that's one way to go. You got to pay the
Yeah.
bills, right? So I want to ask you, going back to Paranormal State, this is where you got connected with Michelle Belanger. Am I correct?
Yes.
Because she
Uh-huh.
has been on my podcast for 2 episodes. They have both absolutely blown my mind. I would love to hear more about how you got connected with her.
It's funny. I was thinking about it today because I don't know how she got connected to the group. I'm assuming it was just because of what she does, and they probably reached out to her. They knew of her because she is an author. Um, but the first time I met Michelle, we used to do these conferences at Penn State for the club, and there were these huge conferences.
Hmm.
And we had Michelle out as a speaker one time. And I remember all I had heard about Michelle up until that point was, oh, she's a vampire. And I was like, what? Like, I didn't even know that thing existed. And and you meet Michelle, she's very well spoken, very intelligent.
Very intelligent.
Yeah. And, she's tall. And so I was, little college kid here, and I was so intimidated by her because all I had heard was she's a vampire. And, and then you meet her and she's like very intimidating, not on purpose, but just because she's like so impressive.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, like, who is this person? So that was my first introduction to Michelle. And then we started to bring her on cases because she is also a psychic.
Hmm.
And I have to tell you, she is probably, I mean, if not the most impressive psychic, definitely in like my top 3, 100%. I would probably label her as probably one of the most impressive I've ever seen work.
Are you still like mind blown every time you bring her to a case? She just
Yeah.
walks through and does that. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because the thing that's really interesting about Michelle is the details that she's able to get to wall colors, like the paint color of a wall, the colors that someone is wearing on their shirt. And keep in mind, she's blindfolded when she does this work.
Mhm.
and she'll double blindfold herself. So she can't like see at all. And, you know, when I knew Michelle was legit as a psychic, I can tell you the story. It was on Paranormal State. And we brought her onto a case where there was a murder that had happened 100 years prior. And when you're trying to research and, kind of back up rumors or see if there's anything from the past that could maybe explain a paranormal experience, because how we, one of the things that happens in the supernatural world today, as far as ghost stories, is we often tie them to tragedies and history. And it seems like there's a match. And I would say a good amount of those cases, there does seem to be some connection. But I just want to reference that. That doesn't mean that that's actually how it works. We don't know.
Mhm.
But on this one particular case, for weeks, we had been trying to research and find articles. And the murder, if I'm remembering correctly, let me see. When were we there? It would have happened early 1900s, this
Okay.
murder. And just going through articles 100 years, you're really lucky if you find everything. Not everything was reported. Not everything was reported the way that, we would report today. The other challenge we have is, the online articles have gotten amazing, but you have to be really good at figuring out what to search for, because, some words, when they get digitized, they're not spelled correctly in the search thing, or or you're not thinking of the right terms to search. It's like early Google days, right? Like, what am I searching for here? And so our team had a lot of trouble finding articles on this. We found some articles, but we were still searching as we were at the location. And, smaller towns, especially, they don't always keep those records. And a lot of times you'll run into, well, there was a fire, there was a flood, there was a break-in, there was something. And so a lot of times these older records are just lost.
Mhm.
And as Michelle is doing her walkthrough, she starts describing what the murderer did after he murdered the girl. And it was so weird. As she's doing that, a team member found an article from that time, and it described like exactly
Mm.
what Michelle was talking about. And, for like anybody that would be like, well, a producer must have known. They didn't know. Because it took us weeks to find this article.
Mm.
Like, we were still shifting through. It was so buried that, it really blew my mind. And that was like the first time I'm like, wow, okay, this lady's like legit.
Yeah, when I talked to her, I was asking her, how do you just appear on these shows? Do you just kind of fly in on a drop of a dime and then you get sent home, or what? So I think that is what she said, right? So you guys just kind of call her up and say, "What are you doing tonight?" Or
Yeah.
yeah, that's what you do.
Yeah. There's definitely times we've done that with her. There's a lot of times where we kind of have the luxury of planning out a little bit better, where we can be like, hey, we want Michelle for this location.
Mhm.
And then we'll be like, Michelle, are you available for this week? And can you come to this state? And that's usually as much as she knows.
Okay.
Maybe she'll know the city if it's a big city. If it's a smaller city, like I'm trying to think with one of our psychics. I actually just talked to him the other week because he has a podcast. And he was like, yeah, remember when we did that location in New Jersey? And I'm like, oh, we weren't in New Jersey, dude. I'm like, we were actually in New York. So he had no idea, like, we took him across borders because
Oh, wow.
we made him go
Okay.
to New Jersey.
Okay, that's awesome.
So we like to trick people. Not trick them, but just, make sure that any kind of biases are,
That's
we're
great.
kind of covering our butts as much as we can,
Well, because I think we all kind of question legitimacy of what we're watching, so that's
Yeah,
really good to hear
totally.
from both of you. And
Yeah.
I know, like, yeah, you have like Cindy Kaz on some of your
Mhm.
shows now too. I imagine she's another brilliant psychic as
Yes.
well that you've worked with.
Yes. Cindy's great. And Cindy's funny. Every psychic is different. And so Michelle is like very, she'll really dig in, like she's telling a story and she'll get all the details. And Cindy gets like these flashes where she'll start talking about something. So she'll like, there was one location where she was like, okay, no, I need to go upstairs. I have to go upstairs. I feel something. And then she'll like stop and she'll be like, wait. And like, she's like, I just got a flash of something. What does this mean? I felt it. And she'll always kind of, her and Sarah Lemos, they I feel so bad because Jack and I put on such poker faces with them because we don't want to give anything
Yeah,
away,
I
you
noticed that.
know?
That's great.
Yeah, we don't want to lead them in any which way. But I always feel bad because Cindy and Sarah, they're both like, will you guys like stop? Like, can you guys please stop making that uncomfortable face?
I'm wondering, do you ever use, I won't say use, but have you ever gotten anything personal from the psychics you work for? Like, do they ever talk to your family members or anything, or is it only the locations where they go to?
No, I not that I recall. There, I mean, every now and again, Chip will do that,
Yeah,
but it's not like a family member thing. It's like, and he's funny. He'll be like, "Can I tell you something?" I'm like, "What's
sounds
up,
like
Chip?"
it.
And yeah, he's like, "I'm just getting something," in a sweet little Southern voice. And so he'll tell me like a personal thing if he's feeling something for me. But I've never had anybody do a family member thing to me.
Okay, yeah, and Chip Coffey is obviously the other one who is on Paranormal
OG,
States.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I personally love watching a psychic walk through a location on these television shows. To me, it's like, damn, like it's like it is just crazy. It's cool what they can pick up on.
yeah,
It makes it from my conversation with you just now. I'm talking to Michelle, seems pretty legitimate. I love that Michelle is blindfolded, so
yeah.
it's just pretty insane. And I'm happy to interview any of your psychic friends if they ever want to be on
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they would love it. I'm sure they would love it. Yeah,
the show.
Michelle, we actually just recently did so I'm doing I don't call it a show. It's more like just an investigative journey. It's kind of the private cases that I would do anyway called Travel the Dead, and I do that
Mhm,
with my best friend Heather, who
mhm,
was on Paranormal
mhm,
State.
mhm.
And we did remote viewing with Michelle. And it was like some of the most insane psychic work I've ever seen her do because she's
Wow.
in Ohio.
Mhm,
Like, we didn't tell her where we were.
mhm.
When we brought her in on a phone, she couldn't see, and, she was sketching out places that we were.
That's insane. That's
It
gonna be on the show?
it's well, on, for Travel the Dead on YouTube.
Okay, it's on YouTube. Okay, because I
Mhm.
did see advertisements for that, and so
Yeah.
it's this week, right? Is that coming out like this
Yeah,
week?
so the first part. So the thing is they're kind of like they're shorter videos, so they're like 10 to 15 minutes. So
Okay,
the first location we go to is White Hill Mansion, and it's an hour long, but we broke it up into, shorter videos, so it'll be one video a week right now.
okay. Oh, that's really
And
cool.
yeah, and but Michelle does some really impressive work on that.
That's amazing. Now, I wanna say going back to my first conversation with Michelle, we were talking about demons and stuff like
Mm.
that, and I think she said on Paranormal State, so I'm assuming that you were there, I could be wrong, about there was a case in Rochester that never aired. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
No.
She said, I remember her saying Ryan was there. And yeah, I think she said Rochester, New York. And she said like, there was something evil and wicked going on there. And she's like, as far as I know, I don't think it ever made air. I remember her saying that.
Oh, weird. No, I'm not aware of that because at least with my time on Paranormal State, everything we did was aired because I
Okay.
mean, quite frankly, like the budget wasn't there to be
Yeah.
able to go shoot an episode and then not air it. You
Okay.
know, so I know we did something in Syracuse, and that's the only thing I can think of like in that area kind of that would make
Okay.
sense. Rochester, I don't remember a Rochester case.
Okay. So maybe I got my wires crossed or something. But
Yeah.
I remember her saying like there was something like hovering over the entire house, the property, and it was like really,
Oh.
really evil, and she didn't want to mess with it.
Oh,
So
yeah. I know we definitely had a couple episodes like episodes slash investigations like that that I know.
is there one that kind of sticks out to you that kind of haunts you maybe a little bit to this day?
On Paranormal State,
Hmm.
yeah, there was this one in New Jersey, and this one bothers me. And it was actually a case that came from a fellow investigator. His name is Dave Giuliano, really sweet guy, and he runs the Ghost Hunter shop. And Dave's been like an investigator for, oh gosh, I'm probably going to screw it up, but at least 30 years.
Wow.
And he had contacted us because it was a case of his. And one of the benefits with the show is that, because there is a budget for a show, there is money that can be allocated to specialists to bring in equipment. So we can fly in somebody like Michelle.
Mhm.
We can, and so sometimes when you're not attached to a show, it's just those resources run dry really, really fast.
Mm.
So Dave had contacted us being like, look, we've investigated a bunch of times. We don't know what to do at this point. We don't have the resources to bring in the extra people. Can you guys look at this case for us? And we did. And there were a lot of really weird things that happened in that house. And I think one of the strangest things was it's centered around a guy who 100% had real world issues. He struggled with addiction. I mean, there was definitely some mental health issues going on too. And I think if you looked at that at face value, I think a lot of people would write off what everyone in the house was saying as like, you just don't want to deal with what's really happening.
Mhm.
When we met him, he was not a he seemed to have a lot of problems with being abusive, and so it was a really hard case to work on. And we did have a psychologist with us, who gave him an MIPI and chatted with him and chatted with the people in the house,
Mm.
because we always made sure that side was covered with Paranormal State. And the woman of the house, his girlfriend, she said to us, she's like, 2:45 in the morning, or was it 1:45? It's been a while since I thought about this case. It was one of them, 1:45 or 2:45.
Mhm.
She's like, on the dot, things go wild in this house. And when somebody says that, they're either lying or like some serious shit's going on,
Yeah.
you know? And so Heather and I actually took the night shift. We decided to stay over, just us. And wouldn't you know it, 2:45, 1:45, whichever one it was, on the dot, we started hearing footsteps upstairs in the attic. We started hearing like rustling in the hallway. It was only us in the house, no one else, no skeleton crew. And we had walked downstairs. It was like really significant footsteps upstairs and bangings and stuff. And so we walked downstairs, and I remember someone in production left the coffee pot on, so it was like burning,
Mhm.
And I was like, they left the coffee pot on. And so as I'm going to do that, Heather and I are in the kitchen, and the basement door like bangs, like somebody
Mm.
was on the other side trying to kick it open. I mean, that loud, that significant. And we like held each other and ran out of the room, because I think our first instinct was it was a corner property, and it was in a town. So people had been coming by all day and like, what are you guys doing? What are you up to? Blah, 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 blah. And when you're working on a show, there's a lot of expensive equipment. And so I think our first instinct was, oh my God, somebody broke into the house
Mm.
through the basement. I mean, that's how loud this was. Like, I don't even think our first thought was supernatural. And when we calmed down, we checked, everything was fine.
Mm.
No, like no one had broken in. You know, they did, we were kind of working two cases at the same time. So I wasn't there for all of this, but they did like kind of like a light deliverance on the guy. And from my understanding, he went into this like hypnotic state and started talking in ways that he shouldn't know how to talk.
Mm.
And he was very out of it. He doesn't remember anything from when he went under. And when Michelle went in there, something grabbed her coat, and there were like multiple witnesses to this, where her coat, like the
Yeah.
tail end of her coat, like levitated up.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's one I think about a lot, because I mean I know the family split up afterwards. I don't know how long afterwards. And he did at some point end up going to jail, but I don't know the outcome. I mean, we kept in touch with people as long I was in charge of that, keeping in touch with clients just to see how they're doing afterwards. But
Mhm.
after I left, the organization, I don't really know what happened to a lot of people.
Damn. Now I
Yeah.
really want to go back and watch all these old shows now.
Yeah.
Jeez. So as you were
Yeah.
saying that, a question that I often ask my fiance Kristen is, if you were sitting alone in the dark, what is the thing that freaks you out the most? Is it footsteps? Is it voices? Is it banging? Or is it something else?
Hmm. I think I would say voices out of those, but if we're doing something else, I would say if I saw something.
Or see something? Obviously, yes.
Yeah,
I forgot about
yeah. I
that.
think if I saw an anomaly, because when you see something manifest in front of you, it is the
Mhm.
strangest thing because it's not supposed to be there.
Mm.
And so, like, your mind does these mental gymnastics of like trying to piece it together and it can't. And it is one of the most bizarre, like, weird mental games that ever happens to you.
Is there a place where you can pick out that you've been to? You're like, if I want to see a manifestation, this is the place I would go to tonight.
Um, Well, I'd have to go back to the times I've seen one with the naked eye, and there was one in, let me see, it was right on the border of Ohio and Kentucky, but I think it
Is
was
that Bobby
technically,
Mackey's? That's not Bobby Mackey.
no, no,
Okay.
it was a different, it was an old school, and it was in I think technically it's Kentucky. And we were, what's weird is I had a dream about the place before we went, and I hadn't seen pictures or anything. And when we went in, it was like exactly like my dream.
Mm.
It was very weird. And when we were investigating the auditorium, we saw a shadow figure with our naked eye. Not I saw it twice with the naked eye. Nick saw it twice with the naked eye, and we caught it on camera. Um, and the only thing I could possibly think of is if it was our cameraman somehow casting a shadow. But we checked for that, and his shadow didn't cast there. So you kind of just like do these things of like, what could it be? What could it be?
Hmm.
There's got to be an explanation. So that would be one. The other one would be during my time on Paranormal State, I saw a woman's arm form with the naked eye.
Oof.
And that was, what was that episode called? The Glove is what it was called.
Okay.
And that house was very, very active. The family is 100% legit. They also got MMPIs. You know, they talk to psychology. I mean, complete legit, legit,
Wow.
legit. Yeah,
Wow. Have you ever had footsteps coming toward you?
yeah. Hmm.
That I don't think I'd be able to handle very well. I don't. Footsteps is one thing, coming
Yeah.
towards you and you can't see it, that's another. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, it's a freaky thing, but what it's strange because what happens is you have this moment, like, again, like your brain is trying to make sense, like, what is happening. So you almost have this thing of like, what? Like, you kind of freeze, and you're trying to piece together what you're actually experiencing, and your brain is trying to figure out, well, hey, there's no one here,
Mhm.
or that person's accounted for. No one else is here. Like, you're just trying to piece it all together. And so it takes a couple seconds for it to kick in
Yeah.
that this might be something, your instinct takes over and it's like, hey, you might want to get out of here. Yeah.
I'll take your word for
Yeah.
that. But I know you've mentioned Nick a few times. So obviously,
Yeah.
at some point, your time at Paranormal State came to an end. The show
Mhm.
came to an end. Well, a
Yeah.
few years later, you got connected with Nick Roth,
Yeah.
and I don't know if you're still keep in touch with him or whatever.
Mhm.
But so he was part of Ghost Adventures, and that's a
Right.
show that I really got hooked on. I still do watch it. I'm a sucker for this stuff. I'll tell you that. But I like Nick because, Zach and Aaron, a bit like they all seem like cool guys, but sometimes can be somewhat dramatic. Nick kind of
Mm.
seemed more level headed, which I appreciated. Um, how did you get connected with him, and how did that show get off the ground?
So it was, from my understanding, it was in two ways. I mean, one, when he was starting Paranormal Lockdown, he was looking for a female
Okay.
co-host, and I know my name had come up a couple times when he was talking to people. But I actually worked on Ghost Adventures for a little bit as in locations. And so I had worked with Nick's cousin, Justin, who was
Okay.
an executive producer on Lockdown. And so I knew Justin a little bit. And so then Justin mentioned me to Nick. And so it was like this thing of my name just kept coming up,
Okay.
so they reached out to me. And I mean, the first time we talked, it was like long lost friends.
Hmm.
It was just a really natural connection. We had a lot in common. We had the same frustrations with, the field, how it was being presented, and just, we were very much aligned with what we wanted to do. And I always made fun of him because he never really told me I would be sleeping over at these locations. It was like when my first talk with him, he's like, I'll sleep there, but you don't have to. And I was like, oh, that doesn't sound too bad, And then I remembered the first investigation we went on. At the time, he was my boyfriend. I ended up marrying him. But I remember telling him, I'm like, I actually don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I think I can go to the hotel. And then I get there, they're like, no, 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 you're sleeping here. I'm like,
Oh man.
oh.
I haven't seen those episodes in a few years now because
Yeah.
it's been a few years, but I remember a lot of them being awesome. Like you went some really
Yeah.
good location. I like the premise too. You spent 72 hours, was it straight there too? Like I do see these episodes and sometimes you guys capture like some great evidence. It's like, keep going, keep staying. Let's see what
Yeah.
else you can get. You
Yeah.
did in this. And I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah. There's definitely something to that. And we always kind of had a joke that the last night was always our most active.
Mm,
And, I don't know if that's anything to do with us or the amount of time that we spend specifically. I think it's just when you're talking to people that have had experiences, they're not usually looking, it's their house or it's their job. And they're like, I was just going about my day doing A, B, and C. And then all of a sudden this happened. So what I liked about the kind of the I don't know if you would call it, I guess you could call it experiment, the experiment of 72 hours of staying there and sleeping there and kind of living, breathing that space, is that you're doing really is upping the probability of encountering something.
exactly. Yeah.
You kind of have to be the right place, the right time. And that's one of the frustrating things I think with shorter investigations is, you're like asking for a needle in a haystack, like, please,
Mhm.
please, please let this be the moment that something happens so I can document it.
Right.
And, a lot goes, I mean, look, some of these locations are really expensive to book out. So you can only get them for a little bit of time. Um, I, I think one of the things I enjoy is just kind of going and checking out the stories and the history. So like example, when I'm with Heather, like we really only do one night investigations,
Mhm.
but that's a thing of we're being asked to go into these places. Hey, can you come and check these things out? So we're just checking out the story and just kind of like feeling the space or whatever it is. But Lockdown was specifically an experiment to see, well, what happens if we don't do that?
If you don't mind me asking, how and why did that come to an end? I mean, I genuinely love that show. I thought it was
Yeah.
really good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. From my understanding, it was just, I mean, we were going through a merger at the time.
Mm,
So Discovery was merging with Scripps Network, which
okay.
had Travel Channel and what was there? Oh, like Food Network and everything.
Mhm.
And so, as with all mergers, not everybody gets to come along, unfortunately. So, it was a shame. We were all really sad about that.
Yeah, that's too bad. I
Yeah.
really, really enjoyed that. Is that
Thank
on
you.
the Discovery Plus? Or where can I watch those old shows? 'Cause I
Yeah,
really
so
like
they're
them.
still on Discovery Plus, so
Okay,
you
good.
can go through and watch them. And there's, I guess it's technically 3 seasons with one in the UK, but we were there. There's four. It's just one is all UK based.
Do you ever wish you can go overseas more? Because
Yeah.
obviously the history there is just ancient. I wish
Yes.
I would see more episodes over in the Europe side or even Asia.
Yeah. Oh my God, I would love it. I when we were on lockdown, season two, we did two UK based episodes, and then we did a whole season. I loved my time over there.
Yeah.
It was so special. And it's just like you said, like the history is like nothing that we, as far as buildings go, we don't have that here in America. And what's also interesting is I think because so many of those buildings are so old, when you're a child over there and you go on like a field trip to like a historic property, they just tell you about their ghost stories because it's like it's whimsical and it's part of the lore, you know. So I found that for the most part, people we spoke to in the UK were way more open-minded
Mm,
to the supernatural and
mm.
had no problem telling stories. And I think that has to do with like it's just sort of like embedded in their history at this point.
Yeah, for sure. I always have enjoyed the ones that are over in Europe. The history, even like part of the reasons I love watching your show and our Ghost Adventures is like the first 15, 20 minutes is learning about the history. And I was
Yeah.
like, damn, this shit happened. Some of
Yeah.
it, like a Penhurst, it was like, this was 30 years ago. This was in my
Yeah.
lifetime. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. And it that can really take a toll. Michelle and I were just talking about this. It's definitely a draining emotional toll, this
Mm,
work. Which I guess maybe you wouldn't expect looking at it from the outside of just like spooky fun, but it's you know, since we do tie it to history at this point, all you hear about is tragedy. I mean, it's never like, and then these people got married and lived happily ever after.
yeah.
It's like no, and then and then like a horrible massacre happened, and you know, you're just constantly hearing about awful tragedy and how awful humans can be to each other.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. We get it once a week on Discovery Plus for an hour, and
Yeah,
that's it. We go back to our lives where you're
yeah,
actually at these locations over and over. That's a really good point.
yeah.
So speaking of locations, like how are they chosen?
So it depends. I mean, we definitely, as investigators, we have our wish list, you know, and then there's people that reach out to us and, hey, can you come here? Or we're having a problem. Can you check it out? Um, and then from there, it goes to what can we get cleared, essentially,
Mhm.
because there's places where maybe the schedule doesn't work for them, or maybe we can't afford them. That happens. Sometimes there's locations where they don't want to be attached to the stigma, so they won't
Yeah.
allow us to come. One of the things that happened during COVID, which was interesting, is a lot of these locations that normally wouldn't let us in, either because of schedule or because their fees were too high for us, they then let us in
Mm.
because they didn't have the bookings that they normally had and they wanted the funding. So they would like work with us on price. So it was interesting to see that happen because there were some places that opened up.
It's an interesting perspective to hear about like the business behind the business. You know, like I'll let you come to my location that's haunted, but you got to pay me so much. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's almost the unfortunate part. Like I wish you could just go to any location and be like, I just want to camp out here for that night and let's see what we get.
Right.
But
Yeah, and some places are cool. You know, especially if you're just a group who
mhm.
wants to do it, they'll work with you on budget. But I mean, I don't blame them. Look, if somebody was coming to my house and it was a TV show, I'd be like, yeah, location fee, please.
Yeah, let's see that paper. Come on, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it also helps. Like I know with lockdown, the one location we did, they told me about this. It was actually White Hill Mansion, that the location fee we gave them, they were able to get a new roof.
Oh
So
wow. Okay.
yeah,
Cool.
so it, you know, it's a good thing because it helps with preservation.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And yeah, so after Paranormal Lockdown, you got linked up with Jack Osborne, which is your
Hmm.
current show. First and
Yeah.
foremost, I didn't know anything about Jack Osborne. I mean, I know his parents,
Yeah.
but I didn't know anything about him until this TV show. I was like, he seems like a really likable guy, like really
Yeah.
down to earth, level headed, somewhat of a skeptic, it seems.
Yes.
And like I say, some of the other shows I watch can be a little dramatic. He just kind of like it's just kind of in there and it's like, let's go with it. Let's just kind
Yeah.
of wing it. Let's see what we can get. And I kind of appreciate that. How in the world did you get linked up with him?
Yeah, that was a weird one too. That was a random cold email I got one day, where they were just like, "Hey, you know, Jack would like to work with you. Can like we talk?" And so Jack and I ended up meeting up in New York one day. He was like out there, and we met for breakfast. And we ended up talking for like hours just about our thoughts, our frustrations, our theories, our, you know, what we wanted to do with the time that was allowed it to us if we like worked together. And I was like you, I didn't really know anything about Jack. You know,
Mm,
obviously, like you know the who the Osbournes are, right?
mm, mm.
But as a person, I didn't know him, and I was pleasantly surprised with how down to earth he was and just how skeptical he was. and that he really does have a vested interest in this, as far as like he has had experiences and he does want to know what this stuff is, and he
Hmm.
he thinks it's fun, you know. So it was a thing of, you know, I'm glad it comes across that we're not like dramatic doing dramatics for television or anything, because we're not. And that was something that we talked about, like that was a frustration for us. And you know, I'm very clear about who I am, and you know what I will do, what I won't do. And you know, so we were very much in line aligned with that as well. And it just sort of made sense to work together at that point.
I've really enjoyed all the seasons so far, and we're in the
Thank
middle of
you.
season 3. So maybe listen to this, go check it out. Every episode so far has been 3 of them, I believe, at the time this
Yes,
recording
so
has
far,
been
yeah.
released. Um, and what the hell, man? Like I saw that shadow figure in the not this one, but the one that came out last week. The shadow
Yeah.
figure when Jack is in the like. Are you serious? How do you not just freak out when you see something like that? Is creepy.
I don't know. I think it's just we're probably desensitized a little bit at this point too. It's like, you know, you kind of I think you kind of have to survive through the weirdness of your life a little bit. But yeah, no, we go to some freaky places this season. Really cool places. We had a really enthusiastic producer who is very much into the paranormal. And what's funny is he lived in like all these different states. So he just remembered all these places that were like off the beaten path. And
Wow.
he's like, I know this place. Let me see if we can get in there. And, you know, he would get us in there. So we got to go to some places that haven't really been done in a national way like that before.
Is everything kind of fair game as far as like the US, or are you limited to a specific area?
No, we can. It's really, you know, whatever. I think it really comes down to location,
Yeah.
as far as can we get in there or do
Yeah.
they want us? Because, you know, I'm trying to think with portals. I don't really think we have a lot of restrictions. We've gone pretty zigzaggy over the United States. Like on Paranormal State, for example, for us to go West Coast, we had to
Mhm.
do 2 episodes out there
Okay, makes sense.
for a budget.
I get it.
You know, lockdown, I'm trying to think if it mattered. I don't know if it mattered on lockdown. I mean, obviously in the UK it mattered when
Yeah.
in season 2 we had to do 2 locations out there to justify going out.
And I remember Portals to Hell started off with Alaska. And I was like, oh, yes,
Yes.
Alaska. All right. I like that.
Yes, that was our first investigation together,
Yeah.
me and Jack. And yeah, that took me 22 hours to get to.
From where you were currently, like what, for the Philly airport?
Yeah, 22
Wow.
hours. I was
Wow.
on like 3 connections. It was insane. I was so tired when by
Did
the
you
time
get
I finally got
did you
there.
get to do anything else in Alaska, or is it
No,
just like go go?
I
No.
I slept. Any of my downtime, I just chilled and slept. And I remember Jack was like, "I'm gonna go hiking and see these amazing natural like waterfalls." And he's like, "Do you want to come?" I'm like, "I am so tired."
I
Which,
believe it.
yeah,
I believe it. You guys are up on like doing one of those. Like I'm done for the next week. Forget it.
yeah, yep.
Um, Katrina, it's been awesome. I got some more rapid fire questions if
Okay, yeah, let's
you
do
want to
it.
roll with some of these.
Yeah.
Actually, it doesn't have to be rapid, take as long as you want. I know I've taken a lot of the
Okay.
time so
All
far.
right.
So
Pressure's
all
off.
right, okay. So you said wish list.
Mm.
Let's hear maybe some more locations that are on your wish list that you haven't touched yet.
Hawaii, because it's beautiful out there,
Hmm.
and I am really tired of being in cold locations with no bathrooms or electricity. So like, please take, if there's no electricity or bathroom, take me somewhere warm at least, you know.
Yeah, right. That makes
Please.
sense.
And I think anywhere in Europe, as far as like castles, and
Hmm.
just because I grew up where Disney kind of got into my brain that
So it
you got to
happens
have
to
a
a lot of
castle
us.
and a princess. Yeah.
That's what happens. Okay, all right. So maybe top few locations that you've ever been to that come to mind that are the most haunted.
um, Trans-Allegheny,
Mhm.
30 East Drive, um, the Glove episode. That's a private home. Um, I always get these 2 prisons mixed up. Oh shoot, what's the other one? There's Shepton Mallet, but the other one.
It's not the East State Penitentiary, is it?
No, no, no. We did one. It was another one in England that I did for lockdown.
Okay.
I always get the names mixed up. The other prison that I did that
In
I did in the
England.
UK. Yeah.
In
Yeah,
England.
that one was crazy. But Shepton Mallet also is very haunted.
Oh,
Um, and let me see if I can give another one. Well, that's five. Hinsdale House actually in New York is very haunted too.
okay.
That's a very
Oh.
weird place.
Would you recommend somebody who's like that wants to get started in this, like to go to those locations, or nah, you got to be a little more ready
Um,
for that?
I think I think it's such a personal choice. And it really depends on where you're at with your own journey
Hmm.
as far as the stuff goes. Um, I have, so for example, I've met people that have gone to Bobby Mackey's and they swear on their life they will never step foot in there ever again.
That was gonna be my next question.
Oh, really?
What are your thoughts on Bobby Mackey's?
Yeah, so Bobby Mackey's is funny. First off, I mean, Bobby's amazing, and he really just wants to have a great place where he can perform and other musicians can come. And he's never really had an experience, which is interesting. Um, but I personally, when I've been there twice, and I have not had what they call the Bobby Mackey experience, which is something horrible happens to you where you get like thrown up against the wall by a demon or anything like that. I haven't had that. But I've met so many credible people that have had these really awful experiences there. And there's a lot of people I've met who feel like it followed them home.
Hmm.
And what was interesting when I went with Jack, we kind of did this roundtable thing. And there were some people that knew each other, other people who did not know each other. So they didn't know of each other's experiences. And when we were talking to them, it was interesting to see how, I mean, there was so much overlap between strangers, and it's on par for what I've always heard about Bobby Mackey's.
Wow.
And, maybe you could say skeptically, well, they knew of the stories. I mean, maybe that's a fair point to make. But again, I go back to there's so many credible people I've met who like really, really swear by their experiences and have like clearly been shaken up by it. What I had happen, and I'm not saying this is supernatural, but it's an interesting coincidence, is 3 days after we left Bobby Mackey's when I worked with Jack, um, I ended up in the ER. It was like the dumbest thing. I was just working out at home and I was jumping and I landed on a dog toy and I rolled my ankle really bad, but I heard it crack. So I thought I had broken it. And so I went to the ER. And when I got home, I had this message waiting from a friend of mine who is a psychic. And I mean, we're friends, as in like we know each other, we're always friendly, but we don't really know each other. It's like we've met a couple of times. And he messaged me and said to the effect of like, I don't know what you're doing, but you need to be careful. I like had this flash of you and I knew I needed to reach out to you. And like something followed you home. I feel like something is with you and it's not good. And what's interesting is when he messaged me was like the exact time when like my accident happened. It was like a few minutes after, like 10 minutes after my accident. And so I had messaged Jack and I was like, hey dude, like, did anything weird happen to you today? And he was like, no, everything's good. And then he messaged me a couple hours later. He's like, actually, I ended up in the ER today. And what had happened was his daughter had fell and she needed stitches.
Mm.
And a psychic had also emailed him, somebody that he had met a couple times, but they don't really know each other. And she essentially said the same thing that my friend said to me, like, you need to be careful. I don't know what you're doing, but something followed you home.
Well, I do remember that was added onto the episode at the
Yeah.
very last few minutes. That is probably one of the main reasons I would be nervous to go paranormal investigating is
Yeah.
not the fear of what would happen to me there, but it's the fear of something coming home with me. Is that something you've ever experienced?
Yeah, there was one time on Paranormal State, we were doing it was the IM6 case, and we visited that place twice.
Hmm.
And so the first time I was asked to step out, I was still in the location, I like in the area with the team. I wasn't in the house though. The second time we were actually working on a case in Kentucky, completely separate case, and Laura's mom had called us like in the middle of the night And she said things were getting really bad. Is there any way we could come? And it just so happened we were only 5 hours away from her house. So we packed up at the case that we were at, and we drove like all night to get to them. And just a funny aside, I was in the car with Chip Coffee and oh, I think he's a bishop technically,
Okay.
and the bishop we were working with, and they, they were it was very surreal. It was like 3 a.m. I'm driving these guys to like Illinois, and the song like Celebration comes on, but they're changing the words to masturbation. And,
So you gotta do to stay awake at that point.
Yeah. And then they're like, we walked into a bar at some point because we had to use the bathroom. And I was like, this is such a surreal experience for me, like a paranormal investigator, a psychic, and a bishop walk into a bar,
That's awesome.
Yeah. But we got there, we did our work, and it was shortly after. Never forget this. I was living in a townhouse at the time with 2 roommates, and it was the first time in my life I had the realization that I was comfortable in my house, because there were things that I do that I wasn't aware that I did to make me feel like distracted. So I would sing to myself a lot. I would kind of rush out of a room and flip on the light switch. I would sleep with the television on. And I noticed when I moved into this place, I stopped doing all of that. And I kind of had this realization of, I wonder if I do that because I have slightly felt uncomfortable in like every place I've lived in, stemming from my childhood homes of like, just feeling like you're never really alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so sorry, I just got distracted. There's a giant bug in my room right now.
As long as it's not a shadow figure.
No. This is a giant creepy water bug.
That's a cool room there, by the way. I like.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah, I have my. Let me see if I can show you Heart and Madonna records up there.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Super cool.
And so those things stopped, but there was a night where I walked downstairs. It was like 2 or 3 a.m. into the kitchen. And there was this overwhelming sense of somebody watching me, to the point where I went to check the doors, the windows, and I was like convinced there was like a stalker outside. It was so overwhelming. Instinct just took over of like, you are not alone, girl. Checked everything. I didn't see anybody outside. All the doors were locked, windows were locked. Both roommates were asleep. And from there, things started happening in that house. And it was, again, nothing bad, nothing where it would be like, you're in danger. But it was enough where I noticed I started doing all those things again, those little distractions. And then it finally, the end that happened, the last significant thing I remember happening was I was alone in my bedroom trying to go to sleep. I was not asleep. It's just like when you lie down and you're like, okay, I'm going to like go to bed. And I heard heavy breathing in my left ear.
Oof.
And I remember during that time, I did talk to the team about it. I'm like, I'm having this stuff happen. I don't know if it's supernatural, but I can't find an explanation for it. And the consensus was, well, maybe something followed you home from that case. And so the advice I had at the time was ignore it and it will go away. And so the experiences lasted from like 2 to 4 months, and then just went and stopped.
Wow. For me, that's way too long. 2 to 4 days is way too long for me to ignore that. I'm lighting sage and all that good stuff.
Yeah. Again, it was nothing like terrible. It was just uncomfortable. And it was just like little things that I don't even know that you would notice unless, you would notice, but I think they were things that were easy to blame on other people. But I just knew from doing this work to kind of, hey, maybe this is something I want to pay attention to.
Yeah, man, I'd be nervous to take a shower or go to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I was. That's why I was always singing to myself.
Oof. Oof. All right. Well, let's keep rolling here with some of these questions.
Cool.
This is super interesting stuff. I'm loving this. What location, if you had to investigate tonight, which maybe you do, I don't know, what location would you go back to in a heartbeat?
In a heartbeat?
Yeah.
I would say you're asking me today. It probably changes depending on the day you ask me, but I really want to go back to the UK. So I would say somewhere in the UK.
I like it.
Um, let's see. What was one of my favorites over there? Uh, oh, you know what was a cool place? We got to live in this place for a couple of days in Wales. What is the name of that place? It's in a park. Sorry, sometimes the names like escape me because
Oh, you've been everywhere,
I've
so
just been so many places that I just, unless I'm looking at a list in front of me, I can't remember. But we went to this really amazing it's not a castle, but it was like a manor house. So like to us in America, it looks like a castle.
right.
And I got to sleep in an old abbey that was like, I mean, it's like, it's just the walls now. The roof is gone and everything. But I remember going to bed and I was like, my life is so strange. I'm literally falling asleep in this like 1,000-year-old building in the middle of Wales. And like, how weird is this? But it was also like a really magical moment because when in life do you get to do that?
Do you actually really get to sleep when you're doing that?
I mean, I don't know that it's the same level of sleep you would get in your nice cozy bed at
Right. I'm
home,
sure it's not.
but it's some sort of variation of sleep. The funny one about that episode, when I slept in, so we would have security. I think very early on we realized we needed security when we did this because it was me and Nick sleeping over.
Yeah.
Like, God forbid somebody break in
Yeah.
and something happens, So we did have security, but security was like one guy in a car that would just sort of like walk the premises once every hour and a half. And I remember when it was like a thing of like, okay, I'm going to sleep in the Abbey, but where the location is, it's a park. And like, yes, parks close down after sunset, but I don't know about you, but I was a kid that didn't necessarily follow those rules, So I'm like, anybody could be in this park. And like,
Yeah.
what am I armed with? A camera and a sleeping bag. Like, I'm not going to fare well if anything happens. And I mean, not just human, but even like animal.
Yeah, that's
Like,
true.
what the hell would I do?
That's true.
And so, I did wait. I remember waking up to hearing, and because we were filming, they tried to close down the park as much as they could. I mean, definitely at night, it was closed down. But during the day when we were doing interviews and everything, it was like, the park is huge. So, definitely people got onto the park. But I remember I woke up to hearing like footsteps on gravel.
Oof.
And it was one of those things of, I'm like, where am I? And then I like peeked out from my sleeping bag and I see this guy and he's taking a picture of me.
What?
He's just like taking a picture of me and I'm like, and he's like, hey, and then he like walks away. So somewhere in Wales, somebody has this picture of me in my sleeping bag in the Abbey. Just like waking it. But yeah, it was really freaky because
thankfully that's all it was.
Yes, exactly. Because
Wow.
I mean, yeah, can you imagine? I mean, I think back to lockdown, I'm like, wow, we were really lucky that nothing happened to us because there was, going back to that Kentucky school, I don't know if they kept it in the episode, but Nick was sleeping on the stage one night and we have on camera like raccoons walking by him as he's sleeping. I'm like, can you imagine if one of them got curious about him? My God.
Yeah. Oof. Wow.
Yeah.
I never thought about that. This is why I love going behind the scenes with you.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing I don't know that translates at home is that, yes, the supernatural part is scary and depending on who you talk to may be dangerous, but I think it's the elements we're up against in some of these buildings is more of a threat than, I mean, like I've sprained my ankles in these buildings. I've fallen downstairs. I've gotten bloody noses. I've gotten sick.
Well, thank you for doing it for my entertainment.
Yeah, no worries. Happy to serve.
Another question I have for you is, what is your favorite piece of technology to use when you go to these locations?
So I'm a bit old school because the thing is with equipment that I think kind of gets lost in context is that there's no piece of equipment that can tell you there's a ghost, right? Because if we had that, then ghosts wouldn't be under the paranormal heading.
Yeah.
Right. So the pieces of equipment are designed to back up our experiences.
Mm.
So when somebody is saying, hey, I feel cold when a supernatural experience happens, okay, how can we test that? We can't quantify whatever this stuff is yet, but maybe we can back up and document our subjective experiences in some way. So that's really where a lot of the equipment comes into play. If we're hearing footsteps, okay, can we get a vibration on that? Is there vibration on the floor that we can measure? Where you see EMF come into play is that there's some people that are very sensitive to EMF, and like, right, so we emit EMF, humans emit EMF, our television emits EMF. Some people are sensitive to that, so they can pick up on high levels of EMF and they feel it physically. So there's times in investigations where we use EMF meters to rule that out as a natural explanation. If there's something going on in the wiring of the house, if they live near, you know, certain wires that could cause, you know, odd EMF spikes in their home. Because we do know that EMF, natural EMF, sometimes causes people to think they're having a paranormal experience. So we use them to rule things out. The flip side of it is that people have noticed what they deem true paranormal experiences happening around EMF spikes.
Mm-hmm.
So then it becomes a thing of whatever these things are, do they cause an EMF spike? So we also use them to try and see, okay, maybe that's a way that this can communicate. Maybe this is a way we can get a call and response. So the equipment is all trial and error at this point. So I am very old school, where I just like a camera and a recorder, you know, just to document things.
Do you keep your EVPs or any of your like best findings? Do you have them?
Yeah, somewhere. I think that's, I know that sounds kind of funny, but it's one of the most daunting things about being an investigator is going through audio.
Yeah.
It's like everybody's most hated chore. And so I have the recordings. I just, when I get home, I dump them onto my computer, put them in a file that's literally labeled audio to go through that has just been sitting there for years. And I'm like, I'll go through it one day. You know, one of the benefits of working on the show is that we'll play them back in real time.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we have them and we know what happened and we're able, okay, was that explainable or not? But like the 8-hour recordings that I have, like one day I'll get the strength to go through them.
You just gotta wait for a software to come out if it's not already. That'll find it for you. So
Yes.
It takes like 5 minutes of your time
Yes.
instead of 8
Or
hours.
I just need like an apprentice or something. Like, this is
I'll
your
help
chore.
you. Shit, I'll go through that.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I'll listen to some of this and be like, did you hear this? It said your name. That is crazy. Now on these shows, a lot of times you hear like, you see like some of the, do you feel that? Do you feel the temperature change?
Yes,
That's something
yeah.
that you do feel often.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the biggest criticisms the shows get, of like, you guys are just talking about your feelings. And I totally get it. And
Yeah.
I don't disagree with the criticism, but I also think it's maybe not understood about what the shows are about. So at least the shows I have worked on, you're seeing an investigation unfold, right? So you're seeing our experiences as they happen to us. And sometimes our experiences, you know, it's called tagging. You tag what you're feeling, you tag if you get a thought. And it doesn't always mean that that's supernatural. It doesn't always mean that's going to end up being something. But if you're on a real investigation, that's what you do, because it might be something. And you want to be able to document those things, because even, okay, say I walked into the kitchen and I'm like, I'm getting this crazy headache. Okay, maybe that's not supernatural, but maybe we come to find that every single person that walks into the kitchen has a headache, and maybe there's a gas leak, or maybe there's nothing to explain it, but we find 20 other people feel the same way when they walk into that kitchen. Okay, then that's something really interesting. And what does that mean? Mm-hmm. So, you know, it is part of being an investigator is to be really in tune with your body and your senses and what you feel, and not being afraid to call it out, because you do feel stupid. I mean, to be honest, you feel so dumb when you're saying that stuff, but it's really just, you have to get over that. And the other part of it is when you talk to witnesses, so many times they'll say, I felt this, I felt that, and then this happened. So it is important to pay attention to that. And also, when we're looking at equipment, I go back to the equipment is there to back up our subjective experiences. It's the same thing. What subjective experiences can we back up? Is there a better piece of equipment that can do that next time? So it is important to call out what you feel.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I guess to add another question onto that is what's the best piece of evidence that you believe you've ever captured?
That would have to be, I think, on lockdown. What's really interesting about lockdown is Rob Zaffe, who was I mean, God, he wore so many hats. He is a freaking paranormal rock star, as far as I'm concerned. He's not an investigator, honorary. I always say he's an honorary one, but I mean, he's a camera guy. He's a film guy. He's a DP, a showrunner, a producer. Um, and he brought on his camera and he worked with the company to change the sensors on it for purely cinematic reasons. He wanted the show to look and feel different than any other shows. And so they changed the sensor on his camera. And I can think of off the top of my head 5 different anomalies that were seen through his camera.
Wow.
And not through our cameras, meaning our security cameras, our handheld cameras never picked it up, but his camera did. And what I find really interesting about that is it's something that we talk about in the field a lot, is that we just don't have the right equipment, or that we're looking at things the wrong way. Meaning, as cameras get better, as audio gets better, they're more attuned for our senses, and so there's spectrums that are being left out. There's frequencies that are being left out. And what if in those spaces, that's where these things live? Maybe that's how we detect them. Because I do find it so fascinating that, I mean, there was one I think of specifically where we saw like this figure kind of step out, and there was a security camera right on it. Security camera didn't pick it up, but Rob's camera did. So I always kind of think it's funny when people are like, if this stuff is real, how come you haven't caught it on camera? How come we don't have this? How come we don't have that? And it's like, well, we don't know how to measure this yet. We really don't know. It's just try. And that's the thing I keep reminding people, it's trial and error at this point, and it's not to say that every experience is supernatural. We know that for sure, that a lot of these can be explained away, but there's still a subset of things that don't seem to have an explanation right now. And that's where we work.
It reminds me, I was gonna say, it reminds me of like, I remember like back in school in science class where you have like all these different wavelengths. There's like, you got the normal light or whatever, you got like UV, gamma, all that stuff. So it's like, I actually kind of like completely understand what you're saying. And I'm definitely open-minded to that. And like, you see people use a spirit box and there's like the white noise. So perhaps they can use different wavelengths to kind of communicate and talk too,
Yeah, I mean, there's something to it, I think, for sure. And it's just again, it's just inching closer to getting the right way to be able to measure it, I think.
And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you this. Do you believe in portals? And if so, what do you believe a portal is?
Portals it's a funny word, and it's interesting because Jack and I we actually like roll our eyes at this point, where we're like, oh, we got to ask the question. Is it
I know what though? I actually appreciate you still do it, because it's like, it is named the show.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that you kind of haven't forgot that.
Yeah. But so I think it depends on how you are defining a portal. So when we talk to people, witnesses, when they label something a portal, it's normally a place where a significant amount of unexplainable activity occurs.
Okay.
Now, does that mean that there's actually an opening? I have no idea most of the time, because again, they're basing it off of, there's a spike of activity in this location, so it's got to be an opening. Well, we don't know that.
Yeah.
What we know is that you're saying there's a spike of activity in this area. Doesn't mean there's an opening there. And portals in and of itself, I mean, kind of like everything in the supernatural realm, it's just an idea. It's an idea that there can be some sort of thinning of the veil, if you want to call it that, the two worlds, whatever it is, where things can move about. you know, much like, oh God, what am I, what's the word for Star Trek when they teleport? Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Like, yeah, so something can like teleport from one place to the other, wormhole, whatever. So do I think it's a possibility? Sure. But I am also very aware of when people call something a portal, what they actually mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You know?
I watched an episode last night with you and Jack when you were in Denver in one of the mansions where you actually said you do believe there was a portal there. That was an
Yeah.
awesome episode, by the way. That huge like orange mansion. I forget what it was called, but uh
Yeah.
awesome episode.
Oh yeah. I mean, well, and one of the places I do think some really weird shit's going down is Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, in
That
Arizona.
area.
Is it
Oh,
Arizona or is that
no,
Utah? Where is that?
Utah, Uinta
Utah?
Basin. Yeah, and it's I mean, when Jack and I went there for season 2 and we spoke to so many people, and he knows the one guy that runs the bed and breakfast we stayed at. And I mean, obviously, like I've heard of the place for years and
Mhm.
I've talked to a lot of people that have been there or know of people who have had experiences, and the type of experiences they have out there are just really bizarre,
Yeah. It
like
does.
otherworldly.
It seems like when you get Native American stuff involved, sometimes it gets a little kind of crazy from at least from the shows I've seen. I don't know if you've had that experience, but
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's, if there was something at the land to begin with, if it's the culture that was there before we were, if it's, it's hard to say, but there's something very strange about the area where Ranch lives. And it almost kind of reminds me of like, do you ever see like The Mist, Stephen King, where it's like the government opened up some sort of wormhole and then
I
like all
never
these
saw that.
creatures? Oh man, it's a traumatizing movie. I'm going to warn you. I had nightmares about it for years.
Okay. Well, I can't wait to watch that now.
Yeah, don't watch it unless you want to be like really messed up in the head afterwards. But it kind of reminds me of that, like just like I don't know, something's going on out there. That's a place I'd like to go back to.
Okay.
Spend
Well,
some significant time out there. Yeah.
I feel like honestly, I can talk to you for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
I will say you're welcome back anytime,
Oh,
but
thank you.
I'll bring it back to, do you feel like your mission is somewhat accomplished? Do you feel like you're still on your mission from your experiences when you were a kid? Or do you feel like you've made an impact in the paranormal community? Like, how do you feel about that?
Um, I think my initial thought for getting into the field has changed so dramatically
Hmm.
that I don't even know that it's about, I don't even think it's the same mission anymore. Because I think when I started, it was very much a thing of like, I know ghosts are real. And again, my perspective has shifted dramatically because of the work I've done. And I know strange things happen, but I don't really know what they are, And so where I'm at with it right now is I think my goal is just to continue being an advocate for people that have experiences and don't know where to go and kind
Mhm.
of feel ostracized from those experiences. And also to investigate the stories, document the stories, preserve them, investigate the claims, try to figure out, is there an answer, is there not? And I don't really care what the answer is. And I think that's the big difference is before I used to care. I don't care anymore because I
Yeah.
don't think that's what I either whichever side we land on, I think what's more important is that we know people have these experiences, and I don't know that there's ever really been serious, like a serious look at it besides those in the field.
Mhm.
And I kind of think it's funny that for, hundreds of years at this point, people all over the world from every type of person, have come forward saying that they have these experiences and people are so willing to write them off.
Mm.
I'm like, that's strange to me because, like, if for hundreds of years people are like, you know what, I get headaches when I'm around carbon monoxide. Like, I don't know, like, why are it's just like, shouldn't we look into this? I just find it strange that it's blown off so much. Um, and even if it ends up being psychological, I don't know, maybe we all have tumors. Shouldn't we know? Like, I kind of
Yeah.
think we should know. So that's what I mean. Like, it doesn't, to me, like, even if it ends up being explainable, that's fine.
Yeah, it's amazing how much, growing up, the religion that you're kind of brought up into, what your parents believe, all that stuff plays a huge part into what you believe growing up. And like you said, your parents seem kind of somewhat open-minded, but let's just
Yeah.
say if your parents weren't, you might not even be doing this right now. It would be
No.
made up your mind, ghosts do not exist. This is just something I can't explain, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I think that's kind of where you see the line between skeptics, believers,
mhm,
is it's the terminology.
yeah,
That's the thing that trips people up, because we're so married to the stuff being that terminology. But what I always say to people, I'm like, it might not be.
mm,
And that's the thing we need to open ourselves up to, is we're using the best terms and definitions we have,
right.
because again, it's not proven, and it's, we're working off of the best information we have today, which I will admit is not the greatest information. But it's kind of the thing of like, the more you learn, the better you can do.
Mhm.
So I think that's an important part of being in the field, is just trying to move that forward.
Man, I would love to one of these days just grab a beer with you, sit by the campfire, and
Yeah.
just chat away and
Oh,
get
hell
more of these
yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
I
Well,
will-
I do love me the South, so I'm gonna have
Come
to
on
come
down.
down.
Come on down.
I
It is
love
on me. Beer's on me.
it.
I got questions for days, but it seems like my podcast is the pursuit of happiness, and it
Mm,
also seems like you are pursuing your passion. It almost seems like you're pursuing what your life's calling, and you kind of figure that out early. Not a lot of us
mm,
can say that, and it's entertainment for me and for everybody else watching this. But in all honesty, like, I do find such an interest in this. I am thankful for you and others like you to put research into this and do some investigations into this. And it is the question that we all have about life, is what happens after. And it's something that we all wonder, but do we really want to know? I don't know. You do.
well, I guess I just want to know. I want to know what these experiences are.
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe it's not the afterlife. Maybe it is. Maybe it's a
Maybe it
little bit of
is.
column A, column B. No idea. But it's kind of fun to go on the journey to find out.
Until then, we will continue to keep watching your investigations. And as we wrap up here, I would love to give people an idea of where to find you and where to watch you. And also, your new show you just said is coming out on YouTube.
Yeah. So all over social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at Katrina Weidman. My last name is spelled WeID man. Easy way, because everybody gets it wrong, and it took me like 20 some years to figure that one out.
We ID man. I
We
like
ID
that.
man, yeah.
There you
Like when you
go.
go to a bar or something, they're like, "Hey, we ID man."
Love it.
Yeah, and so social media, Portals to Hell season 3 is airing right now on. It airs on Travel Channel on Saturday nights, and it also is available for streaming Saturday during the day on Discovery Plus, and that is with the fabulous Jack Osborne that I work with. And then I do have, I call it an investigative journey, not really a show. It's with me and my best friend Heather Taddy, who we worked on Paranormal State together. And these are like the private cases that we do all the time. This is kind of like a little peek behind the curtain of what it's like to be an investigator. And that is called Travel the Dead. And so the location is broken into 5 different videos. So it's 1 video per week right now. And they're about like 10 to 15 minutes each. And when is this going to air, Ryan?
I'd say within the next week. So
Oh,
sooner than
okay.
later. Yeah.
Okay.
I gotta get this out there. You kidding me?
Yeah. Yeah. So Wednesdays will be the new videos for that.
That's awesome. So you
Yeah.
do investigating that isn't necessarily on camera on a TV show?
Yeah, so and that's part of where like Travel the Dead came into play, because we were doing this stuff anyway. Like we've always taken on private cases,
That's
not as
awesome.
much as we would like to, because again, resources, funding, and it's just when you do this 25 weeks out of the year on the road, you do get burnout.
Yeah.
So you do need to have a little bit of self-care when it comes to that. But when we were like, oh, we should just like really kind of, not that we weren't documenting that stuff, but we were like, maybe we should put it out to show people what it's like really like to be an investigator, like that
That's a
side of
great
it,
idea. It's a
you
great
know?
idea.
And then when the pandemic hit, it was like, well, yeah, like everything's closed down. People are still asking us to come. Like we're not doing anything. like, why don't we just document it and put it out? So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
Cannot wait. I will go ahead and link that YouTube channel into
Cool.
the show
Yeah.
notes as
Thank
well.
you. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Honestly, Katrina, it's been a pleasure. I am so glad we can make this happen. I know
Me too. I
it's been a
searched for
while in the
you.
making. That is awesome. I'm glad I reached out. Like I said, I was geeking out when I first started this. I
Yeah.
was like, when I started this podcast, it was like, I really wanted to talk to you, and because I've been watching you on TV for years, and it's like I want to pick your brain. I want to ask you all these questions, and I finally got to today. I'm so happy we can make this happen.
Me
I'm
too.
sure people can listen to this and be like, "This is insane." So, like I said, anytime, and drinks on me. Come on down to North
Cool.
Carolina. So,
All right. I like
Katrina,
it.
it's been a blast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's talk soon. All right.
Okay.